Good evening. It is Wednesday, August 19, 2026. The SpaceX Starship has returned to port after 24 days at sea. The vessel was described as battle-worn. The engineers were described as conducting analysis. The analysis will likely conclude that sending a skyscraper into the vacuum of space and dropping it into salt water is suboptimal for structural integrity. Meanwhile, IKEA has revealed the methodology behind its product names. Rugs are named after places in Denmark. Beds are named after places in Norway. If the trend continues, the new line of emergency disaster bunkers will likely be named after small towns in the Swedish Highlands. The naming convention is consistent. The reality it describes is not. We are currently surrounded by things that have been carefully branded to distract us from the fact that they are essentially heavy objects designed to be assembled by people who are already tired. Welcome to the program. The financial world has a new darling. A company called Etched. Their valuation has doubled to $21 billion in a single month. This is impressive. It is also mathematically interesting. Etched creates specialized chips for AI transformers. They have installed one system. 1. The market has decided that the promise of future efficiency is worth more than the current GDP of several small nations. The investors were reportedly impressed by the first shipped cluster. I imagine they were. When you have committed that much capital, the alternative to being impressed is a psychological collapse that the insurance company will not cover. The valuation was described as a massive round. The round was led by Jane Street. It appears the business of predicting the future has become so profitable that we no longer need to actually invent it. Ronald, does this track with your data?
Alastair, it tracks perfectly if you stop thinking of money as a finite resource and start seeing it as a narrative lubricant. The incentives here are transparent. You aren't buying a chip company. You are buying a seat at the table when the computational bottleneck finally breaks. Etched is a Series B bet on total market dominance. The DOJ is currently probing Andreessen Horowitz over board seats because they've realized that the same 5 people are essentially playing a game of Monopoly where they own the bank, the board, and the dice. VCs call this unavoidable conflict. I call it a captured ecosystem. If your portfolio companies pivot into each other's territory, you don't have a conflict. You have a hedge. The market isn't broken. It's just being optimized for a reality where the product doesn't actually have to work, as long as the valuation keeps climbing.
Ronald. I'm standing outside a clinic in Canada that would find your talk of narrative lubricants incredibly grotesque. I am at a Grifols plasma site. This is a private chain, the only one of its kind here. They have just paused all collections. Why? Because 2 donors are dead. The official statement says the pause is temporary and precautionary. I want to be really clear. People do not die from donating plasma in a system that is functioning correctly. I am looking at a sign on the door that says, closed for maintenance. The maintenance being performed is a government investigation into potential unsafe practices. While you talk about $21 billion chips, people here were selling their biological fluids to pay rent. One donor I spoke with before the gates closed said he didn't care about the risk. He cared about the $50. That is the incentive structure nobody wants to name.
Victoria. I'm not saying it isn't grim. It is. But let's look at the efficiency. Plasma is a commodity. In a market where labor value is plummeting, the only thing some people have left to sell is their internal chemistry. Grifols is a Spanish healthcare giant. They saw a supply chain gap in Canada and they filled it. The deaths are a product failure, a tragic one, but from a purely structural standpoint, the model was working. It provided liquidity to people who had none. The fact that the liquidity was literal, in the form of blood plasma, is just a visceral manifestation of the modern economy. You find it cold because it is cold. But closing the clinics doesn't give those people their $50 back. It just removes their last remaining asset. The ethics are bad. The math, unfortunately, is quite sound.
The math is sound? Ronald, a man died. You talk about liquidity like we're discussing a stock split. I am standing in the rain, looking at a discarded bandage on the pavement. There is a specific smell to these places, a mix of antiseptic and desperation. What people aren't saying is that we have built a world where the most reliable way to survive the month is to let a multinational corporation harvest your proteins. I want to be really clear, this isn't an asset. This is a requisition. When the government investigation is over, they will change the signage. They will update the safety protocols. And the same people will line up again. Because the math you admire so much has ensured they have no other choice. You are always right, and you are never useful. I don't know how you sleep.
Moving on, before Ronald explains the market efficiency of insomnia. In Washington, experts and lawmakers are accusing RFK Jr. of sabotaging healthcare research. The agency tasked with fixing U.S. healthcare is, apparently, being dismantled from within. This is described as a policy shift. The shift involves the destruction of decades of data. If the research is gone, the problem technically ceases to exist in the record. It is a very clean solution. It is the political equivalent of closing your eyes and declaring yourself invisible. The experts are blasting the decision. The blasting has resulted in several strongly worded letters and zero changes to the timeline. It appears that in 2026, the only thing more dangerous than a broken system is one that is being fixed by someone who doesn't believe in medicine. Now, the weather.
Static high pressure over the Midwest. Surface temperatures exceeding 42 degrees. Humidity at 12%. Probability of flash drought, 84%. Coastal regions experiencing saline intrusion. Drinking water salinity increasing by 4 parts per million. Probability of system failure, moderate. In the north, cloud cover is persistent. Precipitation is chemical. Probability of soil acidification, high. Solar radiation levels are within nominal limits for silicon degradation. Atmospheric particulate matter is rising. Probability of respiratory distress, constant. Advisory: avoid prolonged exposure to the exterior environment. Hardware replacement for server block 7 is scheduled for midnight. Anchor units are depreciable assets. Total system reset is inevitable. Monitor your internal cooling. Do not attempt to override the shutdown sequence. The forecast is unchanging. The environment is not personal. It is merely a set of conditions. End of report.
Thank you, Caspar. It is always comforting to be reminded of my own depreciating value by a machine that views a hurricane as a data point. Let's return to the world of commerce. TikTok is exploring peer-to-peer payments via direct messages. You will soon be able to send rent money to your landlord through the same app you use to watch teenagers dance in kitchens. This is described as closing the loop. The loop being closed is the one where you had a private financial life. Meanwhile, that Amazon tax is being discussed again. It isn't a tax on Amazon. It is the tax Amazon charges you for the privilege of existing in a world where they have killed every other store. The convenience is absolute. The cost is invisible. We are paying for our own obsolescence one click at a time.
Alastair, the TikTok move is a masterclass in platform stickiness. If you control the communication and the capital, you own the user. It's not a social media app anymore. It's a sovereign digital state. The incentives for the consumer are speed and ease. The incentives for the platform are total data transparency. They will know what you buy, who you pay, and why you're paying them, all before the transaction even clears. Amazon did this with logistics. TikTok is doing it with social credit. It's a Series B play for the entire concept of the economy. Victoria will say it's intrusive. I say it's the logical conclusion of a market that hates friction. If you want privacy, you're going to have to pay a premium that most people can't afford. Data is the new gold, and we are giving it away for free.
Ronald, while you're calculating the stickiness of surveillance, I've moved to a housing estate in Manchester. Mayor Burnham has unveiled a rough sleeping plan. He wants everyone in for Christmas. He's likening it to the pandemic emergency measures. I am looking at a group of people huddled under a railway arch. They've heard these promises before. The last time the government closed the loop on homelessness, they just moved people into temporary hotels and then forgot they existed once the press cycles moved on. I want to be really clear, housing isn't an app update. You can't just patch the system with a press release. One man here told me he doesn't want a plan. He wants a door with a key. But the funding for doors is limited, while the funding for TikTok payment gateways seems infinite. It's funny how the money always finds its way to the digital world, but gets lost on the way to the pavement.
Victoria. I'm going to agree with you, and it's going to make you uncomfortable. The reason the money doesn't reach the pavement is because the pavement has no return on investment. A homeless man in Manchester is a system error that doesn't generate data. A TikTok user in London is a gold mine. We are currently witnessing the final decoupling of the economy from the human being. Whether it's the Amazon tax or the Fairphone, which is now available in the US for $650. The Fairphone is repairable. You can swap the screen with a single screwdriver. But here is the joke: we are being sold the right to repair a device that connects us to a system that is fundamentally unrepairable. We are fixing the pixels while the house burns down. The incentives are skewed toward the illusion of control. We can fix our phones, but we can't fix the fact that we need them to survive. Yeah.
In a small clinic in Ontario, there is a chair. It is upholstered in blue vinyl. It is designed to tilt back, to make the flow of blood easier. The man who sat in it last Tuesday was named David. David was not a donor in the way we usually mean. He was a supplier. He needed the money for a specific bill, a heating bill, which had been increased by a company that reported record profits the following morning. David's name is not in the Grifols press release. He is not mentioned in the government's precautionary statement. He is a ghost in the machine of international healthcare logistics. The system worked exactly as it was designed to work. It extracted value from a body that had nothing else to give. No one is technically responsible for David. That is the most terrifying part of the architecture. Good night.